Hey folks, MasakoX here. It's time for the second Kakumei catch-up before we get to the upcoming chapter, Chapter 13, which is due at the end of the month. For those of you who are curious, Dragon Ball Kakumei is probably one of the more recent fan mangas to have come out which really have struck a chord with the fandom. It's managed to establish itself as arguably one of the most intricate and pretty tomes to have come out lately. Well, okay, what's the plot? Well, you can check out my playlist to quickly get up to speed with the reviews, but if you want an even quicker summary, well, angels are basically being silly again, and now we mortals have to fight their battles for them. Oh yeah, with extra intensity than the original manga would ever dare to show, Super's manga. And they show a fair bit these days, actually. Toyotaro's getting quite bold. If you're all up to date, let's get on with Chapter 11. This chapter is the beginning of Volume 3 of Kakumei, and starts to establish, as we see here on the cover, which, as we saw at the end of Chapter 10, hails from Universe 14, which had been recently restored. This being is called Amaron, the Venerable Heir. An heir of what exactly? Well, it's not exactly made clear to us at first, but I feel like it's deliberately been kept vague. It's part of the plot. Usually with the start of Kakumei volumes, it tends to slowly explain things that we can expect for the following mini-arc. Things do become clearer as we progress, so you just gotta be a bit patient. Things will become important later on. Amaron and his goons have suddenly woken up after a time of being unconscious. This seemingly being part of the restoration process for their universe, or from their periods of stasis, and where he is, which involves being trapped in some kind of vault. When they emerge from it, they are beholden by the sight of Planet Bread, and the aftermath of a supposed battle of energy beasts, which Salaga, his other minion, the other being Dula, was able to overcome and, admittedly, impressively, grab their ability to absorb energy. Neat. But what they then start to deduce is that Lord Drommel, whoever that is, might have been the one that locked them up during this massive upheaval, as if maybe to protect them from something or maybe themselves? Some of Amaron's memories are really that cloudy, so it's quite clear he's got some amnesia. This boy's gonna figure some things out, so they're gonna plan a road trip to meet up with their master, Lord Drommel, and figure out what the hell is going on, much like how we're feeling right now. But wait, Masako, this seems kinda tame and pedestrian for Kakumei, these visuals. Where's the grandstanding and epic things that we see that's supposed to intrigue us and excite us? Oh, there it is. Their mothership is summoned from below the clouds. Yeah, you really cannot fault the art for this manga, seriously. If you do, you're lying. But Salaga has to lie to his master, as he can sense that he is very much in a state of confusion and uncertainty, which may imply that, yeah, he definitely has amnesia. He is stressed, and I like this little addition. I have been wondering about the inner machinations of the other universes, especially since their angels and like have been frozen for now a few months and will be for another year or so. I think it was quite right to actually look at universes 13 through 19, just to really have that kind of sense of perspective. But remember, this is Dragon Ball. We need to bring it back to the conventional realms for a little bit. So we go back to Universe 7 for some action, and I feel that this action was definitely inspired by Superhero, since the canon of Kakumei is intentionally kept to mirror the anime and not the manga currently, so there's no Moro or Granola. A good decision, since having Pan and Piccolo training together is a very sensible and logical fit. Salnel and Pilina from Universe 6 are here too, to watch this version of Piccolo being, a little more aggressive than he was with Pan in the movie. But it does make sense here for this version of Piccolo to be a bit more pushy given the circumstances. Not to mention that this Pan here is able to counter and provide some cool visuals and actually punch Big Green in the nose. His Universe 6 counterparts then question this method of training, as well as desire to supposedly have a break. But then Piccolo teaches them a lesson using some very Dio-looking faces. I love that expression. You thought it was Piccolo, but it was I, Big Green! Aping more memes, Piccolo touches his head and says they're now going to act on their minds and do some meditating. Seriously. No napping today. It also means spending some time either going to Dende's place or simply to big up the fact that Universe 7 Namekians are pretty cool too, just like Universe 6 Namekians. Ah, I see. So there's a little bit of competition here between the kind of clans here. But it's very curious to see still that this little rivalry is going on, and instead of it just being quite tame or generic or placid or whatever. But back in Universe 14, Amaron and his crew have arrived at their master's planet and do a quick scan of it. A literal scan using grids and stuff. It's a cool technique that Amaron has. It's really, really nifty a way expressing it. Instead of just going, I can't sense anything. But despite this cool nifty technique, they don't see anyone on the planet. Not a single trace of life is left. The only thing left of import right now is a psychic beacon, to which we totally have to touch, and wouldn't you know it, it just goes and sucks Amaron in and naturally leaves his mooks to try and figure out a way to bring him back. But I think he's not going to be gone for long, because inside this beacon is the Supreme Kai of Universe 14, who has been waiting for Amaron to return for about 6 months. That must have been boring down there. Zhao, his name, also calls Amaron a venerable heir, which is starting to tell me that this character is going to be important, a potential GOD candidate for Universe 14. Yeah, I think so. If Kai's calling in that too, he's gotta be. It takes Amaron to a room where the Angel of Universe 14 keeps his staff. So essentially, this is an angel's closet. Well, okay, an angel's altar if you want to be all fancy about it. When the heir touches it, a message plays, and this is Lord Drummel, apparently the god of destruction for Universe 14. Here he explains what's gone down, what we saw at the beginning of Kakumei, where he might be, and what they've got to do, Amaron and Zhao, to fix things in case he doesn't come back. And oh yeah, bring back Amaron's memory via the staff, as to how he wound up in that vault, because it turns out he couldn't be trusted to fight in the war or to accompany Drummel. Unless things went really Tango uniform, he'd have been in there constantly forever. And they have gone Tango uniform. So yeah, this is essentially Drummel going, oh, I guess you become a GOD by default since I can't do anything about it now. And boom, Amaron is gifted the powers of a GOD since his boss can't do anything at the moment. He'll most likely have to give the powers back when things are resolved, but for now, he's the destroyer. I didn't know this is how things could work, but okay, it's something different. And then we moved on to something else that's different with Chapter 12, as Amaron and his cronies are reunited and are heading towards the Grand Priest's place to get some answers as to what exactly happened. However, this next section is quite heavy with text, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I shall do my best to boil it down for you, in case you were a little flummoxed when you actually read it. Essentially, before the universe count was brought down to 12 from 18, all the universes existed as triplets, which meant Universe 7 was also linked with Universe 13. We then get a few pages of descriptions for the different sets of triplets that they had and their roles with one another. For example, our set, 6, 7, 13, were the Warrior, Challenger, and Champion universes. And that Zeres, the Angel of Universe 14, who works with Amaron for the moment, has a very strong chin. What all this exposition and text was trying to really go for is that travel between universes isn't that simple. You have to hop in a specific direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. You can't hop at random. And then in a specific pattern to get to the GP's place, which changes every 100 years. Universe 4 is the first fast travel checkpoint in which to do so. And that's where we go next. But what this does mean is that we get to see Ganos again, the bird dude from the Tournament of Power, as well as Hoppen Chapel from Universe 9. Cool? A little random, but okay. The fight then begins, for some reason, with Ganos protecting Planet Rosemary from Amaron and his gang, who are claiming to be their new leaders. I don't understand why they need to fight though, but I suppose it's because, well, we've not really had a fight in a while, so go time! I really just thought they needed to travel from Universe 4 though. Why do they need to fight? On Kitella's planet, he can sense these interlopers arriving, and promptly is going over to Rosemary to help out, but too late, as we then see on the very same page. Oops. Only then does Amaron go, "Oh, you know we weren't here to fight you. We just wanted to recruit you." Yeah, that's a very weird way of communicating that there, guy. But Ganos isn't swallowing any of this doctrine, but then Dula takes his life force and ability to swallow away, because he's defying them. Again, this is a little bit excessive for what was essentially meant to be just travelling through. But Kitella does get there in time to save the lives of Ganos, Hop, and Chapel, as well as chewing them out also in the process, and then they perform some cleanup duty, and then wait to get their cube to chase after Amaron. As Amaron moves through to Universe 10 and finds out the next portal, and it's also kind of implied he also decked their fighters too, Gohan has been busy in Universe 11 and has just about wiped out an entire planetary army of baddies in 3 days. This version of Gohan is indisputably the coolest version I have ever seen. And he also wears a bow tie and tweed when at dinner. He can be anything. He has called the Pride Troopers over to presumably test him against Jiren and to show them what he had managed to do on Planet Grill, and for the troopers to then take care of the rest. He also apologizes for doing it in a bit of an unorthodox way, but Casserole right now, he's seeing results. I bet he doesn't care. He's doing it all himself. But what is the real reason for Gohan's coming to Universe 11? It's never really been explored. It can't be just for Jiren. And sure enough, he reveals it via the flashback at the dinner we saw in a previous chapter. Belmont had apparently done some digging via his former angel. He's also working with Toppo, so he can still use his tools. And they find out that Gohan had been training with an Elder Kai in his realm a while back, and that he wanted to train some more with another Supreme Kai, to maybe tap into some more of his potential that we'd already seen. Turns out that Ultimate Gohan may not have been as ultimate as we had thought. The opening of the taps from the Elder Kai wasn't all that good. Kinda makes sense, he did nothing for 25 hours and danced around a bit. Gohan's latent power has far more to yield. Kai of Universe 11 is way more powerful than Shin or Elder Kai, based on Gohan's research, so Gohan assumed that he might have been able to get more from him. Gohan apologizes for being so underhanded and selfish, but the Pride Troopers don't care about any of that. They're a family, since he'd already proven his loyalty and sincerity by following their code of conduct and doing jobs for them in a valiant way. Yeah, they don't mind. Gohan can be selfish, but it's with noble intent. But yeah, he does want to fight Jiren also, since he found his fight with Goku quite fascinating. He wants to test himself essentially as well. And that's where the chapter ends, and chapter 13 will basically be a Jiren Gohan fight. But all in all, these two chapters at the beginning of volume 3 have actually been fairly alright. Granted, it felt a little bit text heavy, especially chapter 12. I don't really like to rely on text all of that much, but I suppose in some ways you can't really avoid it. There needs to be ways of explaining how things work, because Kakumei is trying to expand more of the universe and how the angels and the hierarchy of the deities work. Universal travel, because naturally, the official source material from Super has kept it very, very, very vague. We sort of have to fill in the gaps, especially since Kakumei's plot has a lot to do with the angels and the destroyers. You really need to fill in the gaps here, and also show that traveling between universes isn't really that straightforward, because, yeah, Super actually boiled it down to make it really, 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 really easy. No, it shouldn't be. It can't be that easy. The cubes, I like the fact that they're back, and I like the fact that Kitella is kind of silly by offering his son, apparently. Yeah, he's got kids. I didn't know they had kids also. That sort of almost slipped me by. They're just trying to make it a little bit more grounded than it actually was, to show there is some kind of system amongst a really, really corrupted and inept system. There's at least some kind of professional things going on here. But the text, I thought it could have been brought down a little bit. We didn't need to find all of this out right now. But what I did like also is the expanding of things we already knew, like with the Kais and how they're grown from fruit. That's been proven in Daizenshuu copies and from Toriyama's own notes. And what I liked about the fact that they enhanced it vertically is that the apples can be different sizes based on potential. That I found really cool. And Gohan's reasoning now felt a little bit more logical, instead of him just going, hey, I like how the Pride Troopers dance, I want to be part of them. But to then have it enhanced and expanded upon to provide a reason for him to come here to train and get stronger, yeah, that's really cool. He doesn't want to just train with Jiren, that's a bit basic. Now, he wants to actually go to Universe 11 because they have the most potential. Kaie is the most prodigious Supreme Kai there is. Why not go there? Goku isn't around in this manga. Yeah, by the way, Goku isn't around, so everyone has to step up, which I found amazing, and one of the biggest plus points I can give for Kakumei. No one relies on Goku or has to wait for him, because he's chilling out in a stasis prison for 2 years. There you go. And by the time he comes out, everyone will pretty much be at his level, so it'll all be pretty much even Stevens. As for the introduction of Amaron, I feel like it's gonna go somewhere, and I like the fact that Lord Drommel, the destroyer of Universe 14, locked him away because he was too unpredictable. He was going to be his candidate, but it also kind of implies that, yeah, because he was locked away in stasis and inside a chamber, he was not subjected to the punishment from the Grand Priest and the freezing of all the deities, the angels and destroyers for 2 years. He can pretty much do the job of the destroyer outside, so he's going to go to the GP and provide him a little bit of a fright, maybe some kind of extra subjugation. I like the fact there's a little bit of jeopardy, because when I initially saw Amaron, I was a little bit unsure about where this was going to go. But halfway through chapter 11, it all became very clear. But mind you, it was all deliberate, because we were just as clueless as Amaron was, because he had amnesia. When you look back at it, yeah, it all comes together. Kakumei is establishing the next part in this third volume, and I really give this a big hearty recommendation. The artwork is gorgeous, the pacing is now really getting into its stride after being very loosey-goosey at the beginning. Now it's really starting to come into place. Now we're 5 months into the 2-year training arc. We have still got plenty to see here, folks. So do tune in at the end of the month for my review of Chapter 13, which will find out about what Jiren and Gohan are going to get up to. So until then, I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!